Sounds great. Jodi, great to meet you. Thank you
Great to
so
meet
much
you.
for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So let's begin our journey with this. I always ask this first and foremost. The pandemic was such a big shapeshifter for the planet. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach work and life today?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and I'm glad that you're keeping that alive because I feel like we glossed over that a little bit, and it was just powerfully important. So I was in the classroom at the time, and a department leader at the university, and um, having to pivot to online education was quite a deal. And then also I ended up like while we were still pretty much in the thick of COVID, I was overseeing the merger of two departments, integrating some new team members, and was not able to ever run a meeting where we were all actually in the same room. So we had some people on screen, and to our credit as a group, so, worked with really amazing people. We got through a very complicated, kind of emotionally dense department merger getting along well, but it was like definitely a leadership challenge that it made me grow and stretch as a leader in a lot of good ways. But I also found myself just really kind of heartbroken for the students. They were not, and my own son was in college and he was really struggling, and I was kind of heartbroken about that because he wasn't having the experience that we'd hoped for by a long shot. And it got me to thinking about how I was really fortunate that I didn't have um, that the age and stage of life I was at was it was easier than what a lot of other people were dealing with. I didn't have a parent in the nursing home. I wasn't missing a new grandbaby. I didn't have young children myself and trying to homeschool. So a lot of it felt sort of secondary to me, but I'm kind of a bleeding heart. So it
Yeah.
it really got to me, all the suffering going on and the way we were not, I feel like dealing with it as much as a society as we should have been. But I guess that how it also reshaped is that I think we all got a little too comfortable being too solitary, and that's like a little bit of a default in our society anyway. And so I think maybe the way it's continuing to influence me now is I'm trying to be part of some rebuilding of community, of face-to-face community, as I go about my work. And I think it gave me more, compassion and understanding for the complexity of people's health journeys and their health concerns and what it's like to operate in environments where you're immune compromised and things like that. So I hopefully it opened me up to, the complexity of other people's experiences so that I can be a better coach and leadership strategist and leader in general.
I think it's the youth that took the brunt end of all of this.
Yes, I agree. It was so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You got a lot of titles.
Yeah.
So if you were at a career day and one of the kids in the room, let's say they're 11 or 12 years old, wanted to know what you do for a living, how do you synthesize that and make it make sense?
Well, I help people find the leader in themselves, no matter what age or stage they are. I help empower people to live out their dreams and their talents in the workplace, and then create workplaces that promote belonging for everyone, and create workplaces where, yeah, we can build collaborative projects and do good things together. But we have to understand the differences that people show up with in order to do that. And we need to think about leadership in a bigger way, not just the leader of the starship kind of thing, but that we all have leadership within us. And part of our superpowers as leaders are listening, mentoring, caring. You're asking me to say it for 11 or 12-year-olds. Good challenge. I hope that's making sense.
Yes,
I
absolutely
would
it
say it a
does.
little differently to 40-year-olds, but
Yeah. No, that gets the crux of it. So when you were that age, what did you want to be? What was your dream job?
teacher. I
Okay.
think, yeah, yeah. Mother, wanted to be a mother, and I wound up being both.
Yeah.
I didn't see, my parents had not gone to four-year college. I didn't know college professors. I didn't know that as a field until I went to college, and so that expanded so many things for me. But my parents were very encouraging of me being whatever I wanted to be and really promoted education. And so, yeah, I had a lot of good support.
So are you from there originally?
I'm from Northwest Indiana, kind of
Okay.
the exurbs of Chicago. My
Okay.
dad was a union electrician, worked out of Chicago. His union hall sent him lots of different places, but yeah, so kind of Chicago land, but Northwest Indiana.
So what were the early foundational elements do you believe that were taught to you, whether directly or indirectly, that allowed you to get to this point where you wanted to teach and give back and to be a mother? What were those things that ultimately evolved into who you are today?
Well, I guess I'll start with the mother. I had good parenting, both parents, and that was their joy in life. And I could see that, and um, I think my mom was very intentional about like just investing in us and having fun with it. And so I had that modeled for me very well. And I think, and the teacher part, I remember especially that solidifying in high school when I was tutoring people in math of all things, which is not my thing. That's my son's thing, but I was good enough at the basics of math to help people with it. And I read Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Somehow that stuck with me. It was something about the power of teaching. And so I think those things, but then there's another piece which is the solidarity values kind of thing that is really foundational for me, and that I think that comes a lot from my dad being a union man, being an electrician union man, and standing up for workers' rights, even when it was hard, even when it meant, going on strike, even when it meant speaking up for people who were different from you. Um, and my mom had that kind of ethic too. So those I think were the foundational influences. And then college, seeing my college professors for one thing, I wanted to talk like them. I was like, wow, words, I love it. They're so articulate about the world. And then opening up history for me, seeing that, my parents' generation and the generations that had gone before had all these different experiences, and opening up social justice, that believing that, knowledge can be power, and that we can make a better world through knowledge. And so as I went into teaching, I was really focused on that knowledge as empowerment, and learning and teaching that knowledge. As I evolved, I got more into the interpersonal dimensions of it, and mentoring and relationship building. And that also takes me to where I am now, which is a lot of coaching and mentoring and relationship building.
So who was the teacher? What was the first real good teacher that you had that made an impression on you?
Um, I had a few good high school teachers with history and English, but I feel like it was college where it clicked more. Professor Norm Rosenberg, just listening to him talk about modern history, 1945 to present. And also he was somewhat of a mentor to me. In my generation, we didn't talk a lot about mentoring, and I didn't know how to go about accessing mentoring, which is something I'm passionate about now, is encouraging people to see themselves as mentors, but also get mentors. But I remember him telling me, because I had gotten this Truman Scholarship, which was for people going into public service, and it's a national scholarship that still exists. And it kind of meant that you needed to go to graduate school soon. And at the time, I was planning to be a high school social studies teacher. But I got this scholarship, and I was getting into my history field in college. And Norm said to me, like, I would love to see you in a classroom with my kids, but I really think you have what it takes to go get your PhD and teach at the college level. And that was a pivotal moment, that led me to see myself a little bit differently, which is what good mentors do, to see yourself a little more. Not that, I mean, I totally value K-12 education, but I think that I hadn't thought about a lot of other paths because I didn't know a lot of them. And he opened up something for that ended up being super valuable and rewarding for decades of my life.
The other thing too, when you talk about leadership, I'm a Gen Xer, grew up in the 80s. There was a lot of those
Same.
bits and pieces, yeah, of
Mhm.
leadership that were a
Yeah.
part of whether it was conscious or subconscious that have become my idea. And
Mhm.
like I remember, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, Reagan always had this eloquence when he delivered a speech. I remember
Mhm.
after the shuttle exploded and he talked about the astronauts kissing the face of the heavens and all of those things that would comfort you at the end of a day, and
Mhm.
you're trying to, which is kind of absent now, but
Oh yeah.
it's unbelievably absent.
Yeah.
So my
It's the
question,
opposite, really.
100%,
Let's divide people instead.
right, and that's the thing that's scary when I think about the
Mhm.
kids and going through COVID and what they didn't get. What are they
Yes.
getting now with all of these examples of broken leadership and
Yes.
and the way that adults shouldn't treat each other? So my question to you is this: Who was that leader? Who were the leaders that kind of got into your mind that formulated the way that you approach teaching leadership and getting people to that point?
I think it was the people that tried to, well, be humane and break down hierarchies. You know, um, just for example, I had a mentor at, at the university who was the chair of the women's studies department back when I was still in the history department, and her thing was just always supporting people. How can I reach across different disciplines and divisions and departments and figure out how to support people. I mean, I think that's just key. Some of the people I interviewed for my recent book too, I have this book which is Leading with Courage, a career-long guide for idealistic women. And just there's so many examples of great leadership, but one person I interviewed is really her focus was kind of flipping the hierarchy, even as a top executive of a pretty big nonprofit. She said, I just made sure I met with every single employee. I opened the doors to the board meetings. I created all these employee feedback mechanisms so that people could vote on their health insurance plan, on whether we had a 4-day week, which they ultimately did decide to do. She told all the leaders that she had an open door policy, that people could skip the line and talk to her. Just flipping hierarchies so that there's more shakeup and innovation, and people aren't stuck worrying about the boss above them all the time as the ultimate power in their lives. That they empowering them. And she will say, I could not show up tomorrow, and the whole organization will continue. The real work gets done way below my level, so to speak. And that those kinds of things are really inspiring. And I think the people that also break down the barriers between um, an institution and the community, and bring in more insights, bring in more people, and ask the difficult, challenging questions. Some of the people I worked with at UW La Crosse, Wisconsin, really inspired me with um, their fierceness in asking challenging questions, even especially around racial justice and things like that. So I have had a lot of people who I've looked up to, and they're not necessarily the people with the top titles. And that's part of the point of my book, is that, I mean, I would always tell my students inspired me. I mean, there's a bravery of being young a lot of times, right? And I would tell them, even with like related to studying. I taught the history of motherhood for years, and I would say, you are asking the questions that we need. You are asking the questions that will shape the next generation of research about this. And I would also say that you're already leaders. Somebody already looks up to you. You've already reshaped something. I mean, you're a leader on your high school team. You're a leader. You're using your voice and asking challenging questions in your classroom, where they're not talking about women and gender, but you're asking those hard questions and reshaping what's being talked about. That's thought leadership. So for me, leadership is just very distributed.
So, in our lifetime, we have these random acts of kindness that people
Mhm.
bestow upon us. And I was just thinking about the realm of teaching. I remember in college, my second or third year, I was getting into broadcasting, and it was a communications course. They didn't have a broadcast program, but it was communication studies. And I had one of my teachers, and I remember when I walked in the first day, he talked real low, and we all had to really preen in and figure out what he was talking about.
Mhm.
And I remember he said, I talk low because I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying.
Mhm. Mhm.
And at one point he looked at me and he was said that I had teacher eyes.
Huh.
I'd never had anybody say that. And I think about those little comments that happen. And I did teach for a while, but it wasn't my vocation. But
Mm.
my point is that people will do things. There's these random acts. What was it in your life? What was the kindest thing that someone said or did for you that was just kind of shaped and changed the way that you went about?
Oh, I've been blessed with so much kindness, but one thing that comes up for me when you ask that is a kind of peer mentor I had, a friend of mine in graduate school, who's still my friend. We live about 3 hours apart. We're planning to have lunch next month in a city in between. And she came from a background of a lot more education than I did. Like her dad was a theology professor. And I was so anxious in graduate school, thinking, not understanding what this whole space is about, and constantly worried that I was not quite doing it right. And she said, Jodi, no one thing you do is going to mess it up for you. And for whatever reason, that just really stuck with me. It helped chip away a little bit of the perfectionism that is born of many things, but like a lot of us have it. But I actually teach, I do seminars about perfectionism, and we are that some of that is born of anxiety about feeling like you're maybe an outsider and you don't know the rules. And what do we do when we experience that? Oftentimes we dance as fast as we can. We perform more. We're hyper vigilant. We're looking around for all the ways we could mess up. And I think that comment, I've come back to it a lot because it gave me space. It gave me breathing room to trust myself a little bit more.
So, how do you balance all of this? How do you balance the fact that you get into the minds of clients to help them and do a job at a high level, but you have a soul to take care of? What
Mhm.
is it when that alarm clock goes off in the morning that allows you to have all of this energy to do it at a high level?
I think it's passion for the work and passion for people and feeling like, this is a second career for me, and I feel privileged to sort of get to reinvent myself somewhat. And I have choices I can make about how much I do. So, but yeah, passion for developing people and helping, a lot of people I help are women, and helping them see the strengths in themselves, the leadership superpowers that they actually have, and helping expand their vocabulary as a way to help expand their sense of their empowerment and what they have to offer in their confidence and their clarity so they can do the work that only they were meant to do. So I'm passionate about that. And I also love editing and having my mind in some words too. So I feel like I have some nice balance there.
It's funny you talk about the big words and having professors. One of my favorite broadcasters was Bob Costas, and when I was in college, I took
Mhm.
out this loan and I went to this camp, and he was there, and he there was
Oh.
and it was in the '90s, and you couldn't record anything. And I think I had a recorder, but they were like, "We're not doing it." And I remember I
Yeah.
wrote down every word that he said that I didn't recognize, and I had this yellow legal pad of all of these wonderful words, and I lost it in a move, and I wish I could find it because there were so many great words that he was saying you
Oh,
know,
that's great.
because he was so
Yeah.
flowery with what he said. So let me ask you this. When the big, huge word retirement comes up in your brain, what do you think about?
Um, yeah, it's a complicated word for me because I did retire from the university
Sure.
early. And so I run into a lot of people who say, "How's retirement? Are you retired?" And I say, "I'm not really retired. I'm doing other work that's an extension." And so I think I'm also like not facing what retirement is exactly. But I do have friends who are fully retired. And some of them I think are just really resting their brains and enjoying life, and but I think it's just different for everyone. My mom is a realtor. My mom just turned 80. She's still a practicing realtor.
Yeah.
And I feel like there will be some of that for me. Like I will be um doing something that I mean, I'll be an activist, I'll be editing work, I'll be writing, I'll be doing things that fill my soul, but have less concern about making a buck because hopefully we've got some bucks. But I think even more, I mean, I always try to grow into my authenticity, but I think in retirement, you really have more choices about all of that. And so that will be nice. And yet, I think that also we all face ageism. We all face that concern that our relevance is declining. And I've found, as I've gotten deeper into my 50s, that we have to practice that humility about our declining relevance
Yeah.
especially in an ageist society. If we lived in a society that was all about honoring elders, and of course some of us do, and we were a multicultural society, but in the culture I grew up with and the white culture I grew up with, there's not as much admiration for elders, and women tend to face more ageism in more complex and intense ways on average than men. And so practicing not being the most seen or paid attention to person at the table, which of course as a woman I've practiced that before, but it's going to be it's different. I mean, even I have at times experienced moments where like I think I'm not being taken as seriously because I'm not as young as I used to be.
Yeah.
And it's a moment for me. Like, and I just think, well, I can't take it personally.
Yeah,
And people experience all kinds of isms.
yeah,
I haven't experienced racism and being not taken seriously because of my race. So I'm like, well, people have to deal with not being taken as seriously or seen in their full humanity.
yeah.
And that's something we need to learn to cope with and have compassion for others about.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you walked into a room and there was a film projector and you hit play and there was a 60-second highlight reel of your life so far, would that young version of you believe that this life that you've lived was the one on screen?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, I feel a real continuity of who I am. And part of it, my husband always says, you're just one of the most earnest people. Like, I guess I always was that. So.
Would you give any advice?
Would I give advice to my 18-year-old self? I mean, I think, my son and I kind of argue about this because he's like, that question bothers me because we're all going to be anxious when we're young, and like,
Yeah.
and so yes, of course, I think what we'd all say is relax, it's going to be okay.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I think he makes a good point. Like, we don't know it's going to be okay when we're 18, and we
Yeah.
have so much proving of ourselves yet to do in the world. Um, but yeah, I think I would probably say that to myself and start thinking about how get ready to practice self-love and self-compassion for a lifetime because you're going to need it.
Yeah, for sure. So when you look at the timeline of your life, what are you the proudest of? What stands at the top of that heap?
Oh my gosh, you ask some deep questions. It's
It's a wake up. It's a coffee conversation.
I'm waking up. Okay. I mean, my children and my family, being I have three beautiful young adults that I'm really proud of, and yeah, I mean, what can you say? They're beautiful people who I admire and love getting to know as the humans they are, and my husband and I have done that together over many years. So that's number one. And I think about the impact I've been able to have on students as an educator would probably be the second because been the longest chapter of my life and something that in the end, having had a actual retirement party, it's like reminded me to feel really proud of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So everyone has a perception of you in all these different circles of your life, family,
Mhm.
friends, colleagues, students, everyone that gets your book, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I guess I think of myself as a faltering optimist. Like I try to be optimistic but I have a real dark streak about the state of the world. And I can go dark. But I try to but at the same time people really experience me as an optimist because that's also true. Like we are also full of paradox. And when I'm with people, my optimism grows because I believe in people.
Yeah.
I have a harder time believing that our systems are gonna hold and I am a bleeding heart. But yeah, so I think kind of a faltering optimist who is earnest and who I love people, I love writing and ideas, and I've been very fortunate to be able to engage with a lot of what I love throughout my life, and I want that for other people too.
That's one of the reasons why I'm in this podcasting realm. So I'll second that idea of optimism. I think that
Mhm.
human beings are way more aligned. And I think that this realm of talking is the antidote to us being told we're so black and white, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Yeah, thank you for that work. It's
yeah.
important.
Well, no, I think it's good. I think it's good to celebrate what we're doing because it can get really dark.
Hmm.
And I had no idea that we were going to walk down this path that we've waltzed down, you know, as
Yeah,
a
who did?
country. It's
Yeah.
it's wild. It really is. So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in the past, or you could go into the future and see what's going on 20 years down the line, what ticket are you going to punch? Where are you going?
Oh, definitely the past.
Okay. What do you want to see? If you could see one event, it won't create a tear in time, no back to the future scenario, but you get to witness it happen before your eyes. What would you want to see?
Oh my gosh, that gets so hard.
It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
I don't even know where to begin. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. One event. Oh wow. Um, I guess I'm thinking maybe something related to like um Women's Equality Day in 1970.
Yeah.
Just like
Uh-huh.
that would be really cool to just like rub elbows with the feminists of that generation, which I have in lots of different ways through oral histories and writing and stuff, but to actually be part of that, I always felt like coming behind the baby boomers just a tiny bit. I'm just barely in the Gen X category. There was a mystique to the activists of that period, and it would be fun. I mean, history's so vast. I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind being plopped down in medieval England either. So I mean, like who knows?
Yeah, right. I totally get it. So if
Yeah.
anybody wants to get your book, Leading with Courage, you have a copy there. You can show everybody again.
I can show everybody again. Yes.
Bam. And
Yeah, I don't know if it's really coming
yeah,
through,
it,
but
yeah,
yeah, it's you can buy it on bookshop.org, which supports small bookshops. You can ask your local bookstore to order it. You can order it from that mega retailer as well. Some people are only going to get it that way, so I'll mention that. You can also buy it on my website, and I sometimes have discounts, especially for purchasing a few. I have a friend at church who purchased 15 copies because she started reading it. She said, I want this for all these women in my life.
I love it.
And I was thrilled about that. So I hope it starts some, and I know it is starting some good conversations. There's a book club forming in my community around it. So I'm thrilled
Excellent.
about it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I will put your website up there for anybody that wants to hire you, have questions, buy your
Yes.
books. So, Jodi, thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful,
Thank
and
you.
good luck in the cold. We all need it,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
and thank you so much. It's been a joy. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too.
Thank you.